Let me just, I need a... What I was gonna do for the thumbnail is it'll be like me here, and then Abby Shapiro, and I'll have the bottle say respect. There you go, I've got a new camera. Stop commenting now about, oh, blurry, haha, Jack's blurry webcam. $800. One cannot understand conservative propaganda without first understanding negative space. See, in any artistic work, though which is which might sometimes be less obvious, there exists a positive and negative space. This is positive space, the space the subject occupies. In a drawing of a tree, the tree exists in that space. And then there's negative space, the space unoccupied by the subject. And it'd be easy to pretend the negative space was therefore unimportant to the whole composition. The artist didn't care enough to make it the subject, so in a way it's kind of the polite thing to direct as little attention to it as they did. This would be a fundamental error. Negative exists as a necessary counterpoint to positive, and can be just as effective as a way of communicating meaning. Often what's not shown can be as important as what is, and what's left unsaid can tell us the real story. Let's shit on some YouTube videos. So imagine you're scrolling through YouTube trying to look for something worth watching, and suddenly, without ever showing an interest in content remotely like it, an ad pops up recommending a video from a lady here to tell you about why we shouldn't #believe all women, the bravery of coming out as a conservative, how to be a virtuous wife, and why women should always dress modestly. We don't have to imagine that, because the Shapiro family was apparently pumping thousands upon thousands of dollars to get their daughter on the front page for the past 2 months. Yes, hold up. That Shapiro family.
I said certified freak 7 days a week. Wet ass P-word. P-word is female genitalia.
Abby Shapiro is a conservative influencer.
I'm a conservative influencer. Conservative influencer. From a conservative perspective. From a conservative perspective. As a conservative woman. And as you know, I'm conservative.
Abby Shapiro's channel has, hilariously, been a pretty massive flop since its inception a few months ago. It's not unusual for right-wing content to be pushed on viewers thanks to significant financial investment. There is a non-0% chance that even in watching this video, you got an ad on behalf of the Trump campaign, or PragerU, or the Epoch Times, or that one online network with Gavin McInnes and the Nazi child girl. For the record, I don't have any control on what ads you get shown, and they will show up regardless if this video is monetized or not, so thanks, YouTube. But even in those terms, Abby Shapiro's channel has been a unique kind of flop, with any video not forced on users by ads struggling to get more than a few thousand views, and the ones that do, well... And I think there's one main reason that's been the case. See, usually with conservative outlets like PragerU, something you notice is that even when the actual points they're making are patently absurd or not even argued, there's a level of coded language that pushes viewers to take their side, especially if they're not politically engaged enough to spot the dog whistles. Telling people they'll be sad and miserable without a traditional family unit? No! They're actually fighting political correctness. It's not about whether climate change is happening or not, it's about how, you can't even talk about it nowadays without being cancelled. The left wants men to stop being toxic and violent, and that's because they hate masculinity. Look, if the left hated masculinity, could you explain this? Put simply, Abby Shapiro's channel fails because she's incredibly bad at making it not extremely obvious what exactly she's trying to do. She literally just wants people to regress to the days where men were the strong leaders and providers and women were second-class subservient housewives. Nothing outside of that. And while that's okay for viewers coming in already with a poisoned worm-infested brain, for people who are disengaged and just scrolling through their YouTube feed, it's a little less appealing.
America needs conservatives to fight for freedom, not as defined by shallow and sinister modern theories, but as developed by our heritage.
It's like she's specifically going for Scientology training video energy here. I mean, at least lead in by talking about how Cars 2 supports eugenics. So why am I talking about Abby Shapiro? Her videos are bad, people don't like them, and the opinions in them are pretty boring. Well, two reasons. Firstly, I think she hits a unique niche where a lot of her beliefs are identical to a lot of traditional conservative figures, but also she's so terrible at arguing them that it makes a solid case study in bad political rhetoric. And secondly, I'm bored and I want to procrastinate on the hour-long Space Jam video I'm supposed to do this month. So let's look at Abby's masterwork, Modesty.
Hello, beautiful ladies, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about modesty, why it's important, and why it doesn't mean looking like garbage.
Abby Shapiro's Why You Should Dress Modestly Get the Attention You Deserve currently sits at around 1.1 million views. And certainly it's not too hard to very quickly find some things in that video that are objectionable. And I'm going to avoid being one of those videos that just goes sentence by sentence, breaking apart every claim Abby makes here, since videos like that tend to get really repetitive. But man, if you wanted to do that, this video is a gold mine.
Modesty is about treating your body with respect. It's about recognizing reality. That men are visual creatures, not emotional ones. And do you want to be noticed for being beautiful or being sexy? When you go to the park and you're surrounded by families with children, is it fair to dress in a way that's distracting? Do you want to be trying to be praised for your body or praised for your family?
For now, let's take this whole video and boil it down to what I think is Abby's fundamental argument. Women want to be respected as more than sex objects. Immodest presentation turns women into sex objects. Therefore, women should dress modestly if they want to be respected. Broken down like this, it seems pretty straightforward. You could even say it's valid. Assuming all of these conditions are true, this conclusion makes logical sense. But wait, what do all these terms actually mean here? What is modesty? What is respect? Here, Abby's happy to throw us a bone. Modesty is about not sexualizing your body, leaving things to the imagination. Respect is... Okay, so she doesn't really define respect, but we can kind of intuit that it just means being generally accepted by those around you. You know, for the right reasons. Now wait, brother, I see what you're about to do here. You're about to, as a lot of videos dunking on this one have, focus your criticism on the fact that Abby's criteria is too old-fashioned and restrictive, or on attacking the idea that women should have to base their lives around the respect of men in the first place, as the video focuses on. These definitely look like clear, valid routes of attack against Abby Shapiro's argument, and I don't doubt it's on those obvious disagreements that a lot of people initially took objection. It's hard not to notice the hypocrisy of Abby telling women they don't need to live as an object for some man, and then immediately telling them to build a huge part of their lives around the expectations of men.
But more men will think of you as a sex object if you dress like one than if you dress like a lady.
Unfortunately, this is Abby Shapiro's trap card.
It's time to
Dress like a lady.
There's nothing inherently wrong with criticizing someone using their own logic. People do it all the time. When someone claims Donald Trump is a great leader because he was chosen by God, pointing out the many ways his behavior doesn't exactly match scripture is making an argument while adopting that same premise. It humors the idea that if Trump was this devout, pious guy, it would be a point in his favor. But it's worth keeping in mind that at this point, that's what you're doing. By criticizing this take on the basis that, for instance, our idea of respectable or modest should be a little more open, or that women really shouldn't have to prioritize the respect of men in their daily lives, you are still accepting the premise that Abby initially left us with. If women want to be treated respectfully, they should dress more modestly. The end point of your argument still leaves us with the idea that there could be a level of immodesty where you consider it acceptable to disrespect women, just that it's a bit broader than what Abby's arguing, or that the freedom women really have is in whether they want to be objectified or not. Again, nothing inherently wrong with this. When Abby says,
Because at 50 years old, do you want to be trying to be praised for your body or praise for your family?
You could say, hell yeah, I want to be the world's sexiest quinquagenarian. But what's that I hear? Why, it's a bloody old callback to the start of this video, governor. This position, which seems straightforward and honestly isn't far from the societal norm, is based not just on a series of arguments, but a series of assumptions that go completely unacknowledged and unchallenged. This is Abby Shapiro's negative space. There's a very telling moment in the video after Abby suggests men are visual creatures, and that's why they struggle to respect women as individuals if they present themselves in a sexually distracting way. Almost immediately, she acknowledges the reality that this is something that can happen regardless of how a woman looks. Anyone who's ever spent time in a game lobby the second someone hears a woman's voice can attest to that.
Are you an archaeologist? Because I have a big bone that needs examining, Mrs. Pretty Lady.
See, this is what happens every time.
And to admit that with men who often hold great social and institutional power in society, this is often still going to be a problem either way, is a surprisingly woke take here. It's almost something I feel like I'd hear from one of those soy-chugging male feminists. Brrr. But then, for the rest of the video, Abby argues like this admittance was never made. We go right back to the exact same talking points. And you're left thinking, wait, if you can be objectified regardless of presentation, if modesty doesn't assure anyone of that respectability, then what is all of this actually based on? And here, all of Abby's assumptions are revealed. Abby assumes, firstly, that a woman presenting herself in a more sexualized way is in inherent opposition to being respected. She assumes that the idea a society would look down on someone for being sexualized is somehow a natural process, a result of the fact that it's a visual distraction, and, well, we're visual creatures. So wait, are we saying it's bad because it's distracting? Because that's about a lot more than just being modest. Any number of things could and have been called distracting simply by virtue of not being the norm, from women wearing suits to not wearing makeup. And if women are now being evaluated based purely on whether they're dressed the right way, isn't that literally just being respected for your appearance and not for who you are with extra steps? Second assumption, who's doing the sexualizing here? This video would indicate it's a conscious choice for women to turn themselves into sex objects. But it also just admitted men are happy to do that on their behalf regardless of how they present themselves. I mean, she used Ivanka Trump as an example of someone who presented herself as modest and not over-sexualized, but like, that didn't stop her dad.
Your daughter.
She's beautiful.
Can I say this? A piece of ass.
Yeah.
She looks more voluptuous than ever.
She's actually always been very voluptuous.
And this idea that a single person can't just opt out of being sexualized, that's obviously true, right? What is and is not sexualizing or modest isn't chosen by individual women, it's chosen by the society they're surrounded by. The generally accepted parameters of modesty vary drastically based on what's accepted by a government, by a workplace, by a religion, or by a social group. Is this bodysuit that covers almost all of tennis player Serena Williams here modest? Not according to the French Tennis Federation. Even full-on boobage isn't necessarily a sexualizing act, depending on context. All of this leads us to, in my opinion, the most damning of Abby's assumptions. That women here are the sole active agents. I can't be the only guy who's kind of insulted by the notion that I'm somehow biologically hardwired to be a dick to women. At the top of the pile of this video's assumptions are assumptions about the essential qualities and behaviors of the sexes. Assumptions the video makes no attempt to justify in any scientific sense, and which obviously flies in the face, not only of how basic social phenomenons work, as we've already gone over, but the arguments provided by Abby herself. That some men's parameters differ for when it's fair game to objectify women, I don't believe that boils down to some essential truth coded into their DNA. These are societal constructions that have, again, been reinforced by anything from state laws to corporate guidelines, social stigmas, and religious faith. So yeah, in a sense, people aren't in total control of how they treat others based on superficial traits, but only in the same sense that, like, people might be raised with certain assumptions about different racial or ethnic groups. In the end, this whole position on modesty and sexuality rests on the notion that there's an essential idea of what these things mean and how we react to them, rooted at a genetic level. The observable truth that these things obviously have a deeply subjective sociological basis has to be left in the negative space. These are the things that go unquestioned, assumed as immutable truths, and not the direct result of a much broader network of social pressures and coercions. Like, for example, channels like Abby Shapiro's. This video and Abby's channel in general are, once again, pretty shallow as far as any real argumentation. She mostly tries, and fails, to present herself as a kind of lifestyle channel with light political elements.
Hello beautiful ladies, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about how to pack as a classic woman.
Despite most of her videos basically reading like God's Not Dead #inspiring sermons. But even in this, I think there's a good basic lesson to be learned here in identifying the root issues in a lot of political rhetoric, and especially in conservative rhetoric. To identify what's been left for the audience to put together themselves, and what's basically assumed as some deep-rooted universal truth. After all, once something is taken as a truth, it's no longer in question, and that's the exact danger in following too closely the logic of channels like this. Social pressure is not something that can be avoided in society, and I'd argue in some ways it isn't even necessarily a bad thing. If you wanted a society without the unjust violence of the state or capital, as I do, it's only through a series of social contracts and agreements that a community could meaningfully form. The crucial point here is that those contracts are formed through agreeing what is or is not beneficial and why. Could I see a context where it's beneficial to disrespect and shame people for how they choose to present themselves? I could maybe imagine some incredibly isolated situation, but I don't think that means busting out the guidebook to check if we're seeing just a bit too much skin to be appropriate. In some of her other videos, Abby indicates frustration at the idea people are being tricked into seeing conservative thought as some trend that's worn its welcome, pressured into conforming to a liberal status quo.
You've been silenced about your views, but not anymore. Let's take back the culture so women can be women. One of the things I found fascinating is that conservative women can't even find a community when they want to because no one feels comfortable voicing their views.
I don't think this is a lie. I think she does genuinely feel this way. And I think that highlights how deeply assumptions about the natural state of a society can warp our perspectives. That she can tell us all of this, how she resents modern social constraints and pressures to conform, while at the same time trying to sell a worldview that's been used very directly as a means to control and subjugate men and women across nations and centuries.
We live with values that encourage people to be better. We fight for what's right, even when the world tells us that everyone should do what they want, regardless of consequences.
That immodesty is treated with disdain, ridicule, and objectification. That's not this natural thing worldviews like Abby's are just trying to help us deal with. The worldview she promotes isn't a cure for those attitudes, it's the reason for them in the first place. Abby might be alone in thinking her channel justifies being stapled on the YouTube homepage non-stop for the past 2 months. But in these beliefs, both culturally and institutionally, she isn't. Maybe in listening closer to people trying to explain or justify these beliefs, you'll start to see how she isn't alone in how she argues them either. Man, this video sure has given me a thirst for some kind of reliable online personal security, and I think you know who I mean. That's right, Surfshark VPN. This month, the fine folks at Surfshark got in touch to sponsor my latest video with some hot new offers for you to take a look at. What is Surfshark, you may ask? Well, let me put it this way. If the modern internet is a deep and terrifying ocean, Surfshark is like a shark, protecting you from that ocean. They're a modern VPN service built with a variety of tools in mind to help you get the best out of your online experience. With tools like the ad and tracker-free clean web experience, a whitelister to help you manage the permissions you'd like to give each app on your devices, and an unlimited plan so you can connect together as many of those devices as you prefer. They also let you watch stuff on streaming services between regions. Like, apropos of nothing, if you wanted to get caught up on your Michael Jordan facts over the next month, you can sign into your US-based ESPN account from around the globe and check out the Last Dance documentary series with the help of Surfshark. For a limited time, get 83% off of a 2-year plan and 3 extra months for free at surfshark.deal/jacksane. That means ironclad security on all of your devices at just $2.21 a month. Once again, that's surfshark.deal/jacksane. Enjoy.